Welcome back, parents. We have been talking about goal setting as a family and organizing your family to have a weekly family huddle. That's what we're all about here at Families of Character, is getting order back in the home. Listen, Team Langdon, myself, my husband, and our three kids have been huddling up for 5 years. If you've been listening, you have had no shortage of episodes about the family huddle. But listen, today's episode is going to be more about goal setting as a family. Now, why would it be important to have a shared family goal? Well, for one, it prevents siloing. You know what happens in a family? We're all wearing the same jerseys, right? We're on the same team. We have the same last name on our jerseys, the same color. We're running out on the field together, but then everyone kind of silos off into their own area on the field, forgetting about the rest of the players. So mom and dad could have their own career goals. Kids could have a goal of getting A's in school or maybe beating the next level on their video game, depending on what their interests are. But what's really awesome about setting a family goal is that everyone in the family is working towards something good together. And that's how you form a united team. So, I want to talk about one of the most important goals you can develop and work towards in your family. And that is the goal of everybody growing in self-control. Okay, check this out. We had Dr. Leonard Sachs on our show. He's been on our podcast about 3 times, and we're going to have him come back. He talks about how the number one predictor of success in kids and health and happiness is their ability to control themselves. The number one trait you could develop in your child so that they're happy, healthy, and successful: self-control. So today I want to talk just a little bit about how you can set a practical goal as a family to work this muscle, the muscle of self-control. So I want to read to you first the psychology of self-control. So you know that self-control is so powerful. It can help you train for a marathon, a 26-mile race, right? Or self-control can also stop a Netflix binge right in its tracks. And not surprisingly, it's a topic that theologians and philosophers have grappled with for centuries. And the field of psychology has just recently jumped on the bandwagon about this whole concept of the importance of self-control. So I want you to just listen in on this widely accepted psychological definition of self-control. Effortful regulation of the self by the self, the ability to suppress responses in the service of a higher goal. And that such a choice is not automatic, but rather requires conscious effort. So I want you to reflect on that definition. I'm going to repeat it just one more time. The definition of self-control. It's effortful regulation of the self by the self. It's the ability to suppress responses in the service of a higher goal. And that such a choice is not automatic, but it requires conscious effort. Wouldn't you agree, guys, that if you've tried to cut out sweets or do a dry January where you don't have any alcohol the month of January, or you try to train for a race, a running race, a half marathon or a marathon, wouldn't you agree that it takes conscious effort? That you don't just claim a goal and say, you know what, I'm going to just get rid of sugar out of my diet. And then all of a sudden you look at a brownie and you think, that's off limits. That's not even a choice. No, your body and your mind, your feeling mind is saying, you would love that brownie. Man, that would taste good. right? So it takes a conscious effort to fight against those temptations. I was talking to my daughter the other day. She was doing a virtue project for school, and we were talking about the virtue of temperance or self-control and being able to regulate, your passions and desires. And she said, "Mom, what do you mean passions and desires?" I said, "Well, you know how once you start watching a show on TV, all of a sudden you want to watch the next one. And then, oh, just another 15 minutes." She goes, "Yes, yes, that does happen." I said, "Yes, we have to regulate ourselves and recognize when we've had enough. And everything inside ourselves is going to say, 'Give me more, give me more.'" She said, "Why is it? Why does that happen?" I said, "Well, because when you get something exciting or good going on, your brain dumps a bunch of endorphins, norepinephrine, right? Serotonin, all of these feel good chemicals that tell you you need to do that again. So, what we have to do is we have to know that that is just a process that our body and brain goes through. There's nothing wrong with us, but it's just something to be expected. If we accept that about ourselves and say, "Oh man, my body's going to tell me to do a whole bunch of things that aren't good for me or are kind of overdosing me on the good, and I'm going to have to fight against that," then we can move to the next step, which is, what do I do when I recognize that my mind, my brain, and my body are trying to take over and make me indulge in something, right? To do more of something that I actually need. So, when I was talking to my daughter about this, I said, "What is one thing that you could ask yourself when you're wanting a little bit more of something?" She says, "Oh, let's see. I don't know." I said, "Well, how about you ask yourself, how much of that have I already had? Have I already had a soda today? Have I already watched an hour of TV? Have I already been playing my game for 30 minutes? How much reading have I done? 0 minutes in 2 days. Okay, so that means I've got to regulate myself and control myself to get back to the good and to say no to that which does not bring us true joy and happiness, right? It's that temporary, fleeting feeling that we really want to do something or need something. So I love this self-control poem for kids because it helps them to just kind of understand the concept of self-control a little bit better. So I want to read it to you. It says, "On my finger, I tied a string to help me remember an important thing. Every day I set a goal. Today, my goal is self-control. We are faced with choices every day, choices that can go either way. In the end, what will you choose? To do good or make a lame excuse? There are some things that seem like fun that end up wrong when all is done. Like times I want to touch wet paint or stick my fingers in the cake. But then I look down at my string and I decide to do the right thing. My string helped me reach my goal. I'm glad I'm learning self-control." So I wanted to share that with you so that you can share that with your kids or grandkids. It's a little poem about how it's our job to make choices, to say no to those things that are not healthy for us, and to say yes to those things that are good and beautiful, right? One of the things that we have done in our family that has really helped us build up that muscle of self-control is, as a family, not eating any desserts except on Sundays. Okay? We celebrate Sundays as a feast day every Sunday. Why? Well, as Christians, we know that Jesus died on Friday. And so oftentimes we will abstain from luxuries, right, on that day. We won't drink alcohol, or we won't eat meat, or we won't have sweets on that day. But then on Sunday, the day that Jesus rose from the dead, that's a party, that's a celebration, that's a reason to feast, right? So every Sunday is like a mini Easter. And so it's a great way in your family to talk about how we use the virtue of temperance. Monday through Saturday, we really control our impulses and our desires for extra sweets and extra time on screens. And then on Sunday, we can reward ourselves with some dessert. Now, we don't do screens on our Sundays because we like to just make it a real like Sabbath, right? Like taking back the Sabbath. So, not doing a lot on electronics, certainly not working on Sundays, checking extra emails, but that's part of self control as adults too, right? Is man, I could just get a couple things done on this Sunday, and that would make Monday so much easier at work. Yes, but as Christians, we know the third commandment is what? Keep holy the Sabbath. That means make it a day of faith, family, and fun, right? We reserve work for Monday through Friday and sometimes Saturdays. But having the control inside of yourself as a parent to preserve Sundays as a day of rest, as a day of community with other families, as a day to go to church and to talk about your faith and to take naps, right? To make good food together. This is a beautiful and wonderful thing. So I want to encourage you, work on this goal of self-control with your kids. There are so many examples of what you could do to work on self-control with your kids where you are a unified team. And I'm going to list a few of those now. The first habit you can work on, aside from limiting sugar, is getting up on time and getting up on your own. Our kids have been getting up to their alarm clock since they were 5 years old. Why? Because someone told us early on that this is a very important habit to develop in kids, that they aren't dependent on their parents to wake them up, but that they get in a healthy habit of waking up to their own alarm clock. And so you can buy alarm clocks for everyone. Go on Amazon, it'll come tonight or tomorrow. Buy an alarm clock that doesn't have any fancy things on it. Just a simple alarm clock with the time and a beeper or a buzzer, right? No radio needed. Why? Because that's more stuff that you have to regulate in their room. Just a simple alarm clock. And then have a chat on a Sunday about everybody setting their alarms. Go around and help your kids set up their alarm clock in their room and set the time that they're going to wake up each morning. Put that alarm clock across the room where they have to get up out of the bed and go turn it off. This is a beautiful habit to establish, and you will get time back as a parent. Why? Because you're no longer rushing around trying to wake everybody up and then going back and checking the second time to see if they actually got up. And this gives them a sense of control, a sense of responsibility, a sense of leveling up. You see, when we're able to control ourselves first thing in the morning and we want to sleep in or we want to roll back over, but that alarm clock goes off and we get up instead and we turn around and we make our beds, guess what? We've already said no to our passions and desires twice, right? No, I'm not going to go back to sleep. And no, I'm not going to leave this bed a mess. I'm going to do the hard thing right away. Well, imagine what this does for kids over time. It builds up this reservoir of self-control when they get up on their own every day, make their bed every day. It builds up this reservoir of self-control that pours out and overflows in their teenage years. I want to tell you, I have a teen. I have 2 teens, and you need a huge pool of self-control to pull from when you're a teenage boy or a teenage girl. Think of all the pressures coming at you. If you haven't practiced in small ways saying no to things, then when you are a teenager and you're in relationship with someone, or someone offers you drugs, or someone wants to show you pornography on their phone, right? Or someone wants to talk you into stealing something from a store. You've got to have those muscles built up to be able to say no to those things so that you can say yes to the things that make you truly happy and healthy. So the alarm clock in the morning and making the bed is a great family goal to start with. So we got no sugar except for Sundays, a little treat on Sundays. We got setting alarm clocks in everybody's bedrooms, even young kids, kindergarten age, right? And getting up on time and then making your bed. What's another way that we can work on self-control? How about when you're eating dinner, watching your impulses when it comes to your speech? Does everything need a comment? No, not everything deserves a comment. So we can work on listening and not interrupting, right? When we interrupt, we apologize and then we get quiet again so that the person can finish their thoughts. Great way to work on self-control, right? Another way to work on self-control is through healthy screen habits, right? Are we getting on our video games or binging Netflix before we've done what we need to do? This is a great saying to get going in your family to work on self-control. It's we do what we need to do before we do what we want to do. Got to do what we need to do before we do what we want to do, right? Yes. Okay, if we haven't made our bed, we haven't done our homework, we're not ready to do screen time, right? We're not ready to go out and ride our skateboard if we don't have our homework done for school tomorrow, right? This is self-control. And you don't have to get all philosophical with him and sit him down and say, we're going to work on self-control for this whole month. And every day we're going to check in with each other about it. Instead, what I'd say is, hey guys, we're going to work to regulate ourselves, to say no to things that get us in trouble, that cause us problems. We've had too much sugar or not enough sleep, or we're getting up on, late and out the door, 10 minutes late every day. Let's just work on that little regulator button inside our brain where when that little devil on our shoulder is saying, do more, you should just ask for a little bit more of that, or go ahead, take the next cookie, that we swipe him away and say, whoa, wait a minute, we have limits. And let's just start with no desserts except for Sunday. And then let's have a Sunday, right? Let's make it intentional that we celebrate Sunday with a little treat. Okay. And so if you want to, you can engage your kids to make some signs around the house that positively impact your mood and say our goal, Sundays on Sunday, right? Like ice cream Sundays on Sunday. And that's what you're going for. You're going toward. That's the finish line you're looking for versus what we're deprived of, right? What we're going without. But instead, hey, let's see if we can get 6 days in a row without dessert. Put a sticky note on the wall for every day someone in the family goes without having sweets, right? Or a sticky note on the wall every morning for every person that gets up on their alarm clock. And then let's count them up at the end of the week and let's celebrate. Parents, I would say as a clinical counselor for 20 years, and after interviewing Dr. Leonard Sachs on our podcast, self-control is something we could work on all year long. And think of at the end of the year, looking back to be able to say how you develop those muscles of being able to say no to things that you used to indulge in and to say yes to a whole bunch of other healthy habits. So I just want to encourage you again, focus in on self-control, on temperance, working on this one little bit at a time. Parents, you will see that when your children leave the home in their teenage years, right after they graduate from high school, they go off to college, or in our case, our son went on to flight school, that they have the ability to regulate their emotions. They have the ability to regulate what's healthy for their bodies. They have the ability to regulate screen time and not be endlessly scrolling and skipping classes and not going to work and losing jobs. They'll have those skills built up, and you'll be glad you spent this intentional time setting a unified goal as a family to grow in self-control. Stay tuned to our podcast for more tips like this. And check us out on the socials. We're very active on Instagram and Facebook. We have a YouTube channel too. So if you want to share these episodes with your friends and your family members, send them to your principal or your kids' teachers, right? So that they can pass them on to other parents. We love to spread the message of how you can help your family thrive this year. Take care, and we'll catch you on another episode of the Families of Character Show real soon.